Hello and welcome back to the Boat Shed. My name is John, and this boat behind me is Antidote. And I'm an engineer and a sailor with the dream of fixing up this old boat to go sailing around the world. Now I've got a lot of work to do first, and for the past while, I've been rebuilding my workshop after a really crazy cold snap left me with a burst pipe and some unexpected water damage. So we're gonna catch up on all of that activity, and then we are finally gonna get back to some boat work, so stick around. Well, it's been a while since we've all hung out together, and I'm really glad to see you all back. The last time we were all here, this chair was right about there in the middle of this emptied out hollow garage. Now, have you ever seen something that was so crazy that your brain just couldn't process it? Because that's how I felt when I rolled up this garage door and it was raining inside the shop. It was terrible and mind-bending in the worst possible way. So we reacted as fast as we could to the issue. We got in here with shop vacs and we were cleaning up all the water. But it was evident right away that behind the walls there was a ton of water damage and up in the attic of this old garage. Most of my tools made it through this ordeal unscathed. Ironically, it was the moisture meter that actually failed during the deluge of water, so I guess everything has its limits. We moved everything out of the workshop and into a 20-foot storage container, and now you'll be amazed at how much those things can absorb. After trying for several weeks to keep all the balls in the air and keep everything moving, it just became obvious that it was not going to be possible to keep working in those conditions. I needed to get my shop back and get out of that storage container. The shop project snowballed somewhat, like pulling the thread on the sweater, as these old projects often do, and like Antidote has sort of become already, and will continue to, I'm sure. First of all, we had to correct some framing in the structure that was just really not up to the current code conditions. Now, tearing everything out did have its advantages though, because we were able to correct a lot of these issues. The previous owner of this shop used this back half as a hair salon. So behind me and along that wall, they had a bathroom. Now, I didn't really need to have a bathroom in the garage, and so I was able to blow that wall out, reconfigure all of this, maximize the space. The space in here is more valuable to me as storage and workspace, floor space, than it is as a auxiliary bathroom. Now, I did keep the plumbing in the wall in the event that we ever do want to return it to a bathroom. Now, the old attic scuttle, the stairs that pulled down from above, they were located in an odd location. They interfered with the garage doors, and they'd also worn out with time. They were built with these old rivets that had pulled through this very thin door skin. I think what you have here is just, this was the cheapest way to build these at the time. When I went to look at replacing the unit and I saw the sticker price, I decided, you know what, this is the perfect opportunity to rebuild this. And that's really what I'm doing on this channel anyway, so I was very delighted. We got a couple of new carriage bolts and a thicker 1/2 inch door skin for this, a lot more robust than what it was originally built with. Put it all back together, better than new, and now I've got it located in a place where it doesn't interfere with the workspace and has great access to the attic now. Many of the walls in this workshop were poorly insulated or not insulated at all. So this was the perfect opportunity to improve all of that, put new insulation in where we could, reused what was still okay. Now the entire ceiling and walls are insulated, and it is nice and cool in here. So the summer is off to a good start. It's pretty warm in the boat shed and nice and cool in here. I'm gonna come in here to take little breaks probably when I'm working. So then it came to covering everything up, and many of you suggested, and I totally agree, to hire out the drywall work. I have enough experience doing drywall to know that I'd rather hire that work out. So we had a great company come through and they took care of this for us, did a great job. Then we were able to start getting paint back on things, and when you do that, everything starts to feel like you are on the home stretch. So the dust moves down and you get to start seeing the nice finished walls. Spraying everything was probably overkill. I just really like the airless sprayer. Did a great job. It's so fun to work with, and the trim comes out beautifully. So I cannot wait to start smashing some big heavy metal bits into these nicely painted trim. So I had removed the garage doors after we got all the drywall loaded in here, and that was so that they could hang the ceiling much easier without all these rails and openers in place. Thankfully, I'd thought ahead about that, and I had actually marked on the floor the locations of all of the overhead hardware using my plumb laser. So this is a great tool to help you locate things in that nature. It really just has that one very specific job. So we marked all these locations on the floor, and we're able to relocate all these holes and drive that hardware home nice and quick to get these garage doors back up and this space finished out. Now next door, when it came to the workshop floor, previously there was this black and white checker, really classic look, and I considered putting something like that back, but I just thought, you know, for what it is, I'm just gonna go with one of those roll-on epoxy floors, and those work really great. I've used them before on a previous project, and so to get ready for that, I just had to grind the floor a little bit to get it cleaned up and get all this old residue off. Fortunately, burned up one of my angle grinders doing this. It just was not up to the task. I was asking it to do quite a lot of work. I had to upgrade this guy. I went with this DeWalt DWE 402N. It's reasonably priced, and the thing works awesome. It actually ground through all of this work without any problem. It didn't heat up at all. It has these air ducts that actually push a lot of air through it and keeps it totally cool. So whereas my previous one was like hot to the touch after just minutes of use, this thing stayed cool for the whole time. So if you've got a big grinding job, more than just grinding a few edges off here and there, I do recommend that unit. So if you're gonna be grinding concrete with an angle grinder, you have to have one of these dust hoods or you won't be able to see your hand in front of your face after just a few minutes. So really recommend this unit. It was an awesome addition and made cleanup so much easier. While I was doing this, the generic dust separator that I had hooked up to my vacuum started to give up the ghost a bit. It was letting a lot of dust through. It became evident that it was clogging the filter. So after cleaning that out, I decided to give this newer Low Pro Dust Deputy version a try. Now, they had sent me this a few weeks ago because they noticed that on my channel I really take dust control pretty seriously, so they wanted me to try this thing out and see if I like it. This is a really cool low profile unit. Takes up almost no space, which I really like. It clips on to any standard 5-gallon bucket, or you can get it in their kit where it has its own dedicated clear bucket, which is kind of a nice addition. Now, concrete dust is probably one of the more difficult things for one of these things to separate because it is so fine, and once it's airborne, it tends to like to stay airborne. But this thing did a great job. It actually got out a little more than 75% of all the dust that was collected went into the can and not into the vacuum bag. So to me, that was a huge help, and I really like how low profile this thing is. For 60 bucks, you can get them at Lowe's. I can't think of any reason not to have one of these. So they do make other options that are even better performing than that, but at that price point, it's a great little addition, so I was happy to have it. Thanks, Antidote, for sending that. I'll put a bunch of links down below for all the stuff that I used here for this work, in case you're interested. Now with the floor ground down to a nice rough finish, perfect for adhesion, you're ready to roll on this epoxy floor coating. So we just mix it up like any other epoxy, and then in small patches you spread it on and roll it onto the floor, and it works really well. It comes out quite nice. It's very thick. It's satisfying to roll it on. And then the only problem I had was that I was a little bit generous with the colored chips when I started, so I was a little thin getting towards the end, but I think it looks pretty good. It's hard to tell if you don't know that, and I'm really happy with the finish and the way it turned out. So hopefully it's a nice, durable, long-lasting floor for the workshop. I think it looks great. I'm very happy with it. So now it was time to move everything back in. What a wonderful part to get to. We got to work emptying out that old container, moved everything back into its final home, got to find places for everything. So it's very satisfying to be putting things back on their final positions, putting the racking where I want it, putting the shelves where I want them, and the countertop spaces. So everything has come together really nicely, and I think it's a really efficient, clean workspace. I'm very happy to get back to work in here. As I was finishing up the shop organization, there's a few folks that jumped in and helped out to get the shop looking its absolute best. So a huge thanks goes out to Swag Off-Road. So the name stands for Scientific Wild Ass Guess, which I think is totally hilarious, and it actually makes me think about what we're doing here with the Antidote project, because that's sort of how a lot of this work feels. These guys have a whole host of very cool fabrication tools and fixtures and things, and they sent me this cool little bracket. And so this guy here mates up perfectly with my angle grinder. We're gonna get it mounted right down here, and it does a great job keeping that out of the way, and it just looks really great too, so I'm pretty happy with that. And then this 4-unit drill driver holder has a bunch of slots to put hand tools, as well as a tray on the top for batteries, I figure. So that's what I decided to do with it. So put all my batteries up on here. I rigged up this little charger rack, put that on the wall, and then all this together is my battery hand tool storage solution. So I've got a few of my most often used hand tools there and all the batteries that go with them. So this maximizes my wall space, and it looks really cool. So you can check all their products out down below. Thanks a lot, Swag, for sending that stuff over. And they have this really cool tool that they sent me, which we're gonna be putting in a future video, and I'm very excited to show you that. And if you want a clue as to what it is, we'll probably put something down in the description and you can get a sneak peek on that too. Boats are off-road too, right? Yeah, exactly. Now, one of the very first supporters of the channel is actually Bolt Depot. You'll have seen their stuff around here before, and I've talked about them. But when they saw what happened with the shop, they decided to help out. They wanted to send some stuff my way. And so you're not gonna believe what we've got here. Thankfully, I'm on good terms with a UPS driver because when all this showed up, it took a little bit of time to unload it all. But what Bolt Depot has sent me is a whole bunch of racking systems to install and hang up some different hardware. So this is gonna look great in the shop, and it's gonna make things so much easier for me to find all the stainless 316 hardware that I need. So huge, massive thanks to Bolt Depot. Let's get this unpacked, see what we've got. So these are mini kits. So just a variety of screws here. Something like this is gonna be great in the workshop here. And this looks like socket cap screws. So look at that. So there's the 4 trays. Can live in here. Totally organized. That is awesome. Nice. So this will be for the hex bolts and stuff. And now this is gonna be pretty heavy, so I wanna make sure I've got at least a couple of studs it's going into. Let's just make sure we know how much it all weighs. So about 100 pounds. Oh, that's heavy. So it should be okay. As long as we can hit a couple of studs, this will stay up just fine. I've got all this now in the shop, ready to go. I don't need to go to the hardware store. It's a huge help, and it's just also really fun to have this here. Thanks, Bolt Depot, for everything you do to support this workshop repair as well as the project in general. As always, we'll put a link down to their website below, and if you do need some hardware, especially 316 stainless or silicone bronze, things like that, check them out. You will not be disappointed, I promise. Well, the workshop is finally back together, so why don't I take you for a little quick tour, a little walk around, and I'll show you the ins and outs of how it all came out. Starting off in this corner, this is the general workspace area, and what a bunch of space we have, isn't it nice? So this is my grandfather's workbench, and this is probably close to 100 years old. And I have my grinder, bench vise, and of course you recognize the swag grinder holder here. And this is gonna be my fabrication station. So when I'm working on metal, grinding things, banging on things, this will be kind of the heavy duty workbench. And of course I got my drill press, bandsaw, all these other various tools. So this is where the big covered work will be taking place when I'm doing that kind of stuff. Now you'll probably also recognize the motorcycle here. This is in the background sometimes. And this is my little touring bike that I'm gonna go on a trip with my father here. Very soon we'll do some warm-up trips and then maybe a larger trip. Unfortunately, the other day I noticed that the fork is blown out and leaking oil, so we're gonna have to rebuild that. We'll take you for a little tour of that sometime if you're interested in motorcycles and stuff. Now over in this corner, we have the work table, and you'll recognize this from previous videos. It's the same table, of course, but it got a little bit of water damage, but it'll be fine, we'll work it out. And now it folds up onto this wall instead of the previous location. So I have a lot of floor space if I need it. And I'm really excited to show you guys what's back here. So this is sort of the studio side of the workshop. And this is where I'll be doing some of the more finer, detailed work, things that don't create a lot of dust and destruction. Starting over here, we have the toolbox. I've had that for ages, and it just keeps all my tools organized. We've got places for paints and different chemicals and glues and things. And then this is the old workbench that I had in the previous space that you might have seen me use a few times. Fits in really nicely, and it's gonna do a great job just providing a good workspace for doing some of the more intricate tasks. Kept the water in here. I know that was the problem with the last installation, but we've really properly insulated everything up there. Room to expand on the storage there. We have the awesome swag rack there and the Bolt Depot organizational bins for the general hardware. So then working our way over here, we kept the powder coating oven, which is also a further rebuilding oven as it turns out. Got this awesome air compressor. I'm excited to get this fully ready. It's not plumbed up yet, so we'll do that. This is a roll-away shelving with some tools on it, so I can access that back door where I have leftover wood remnants, metal remnants, things like that. It's a little bit of a warehouse in there. And then on the permanent shelves here, I just have a lot of storage for boat-related stuff, things we're gonna be working on. So this is the workshop side, super nice and clean in here. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments. So now you've seen the workshop, and I'm very happy with the way it turned out. You know, I was feeling pretty discouraged there when I had to do all this work, and I really just wanted to be working on the boat. But as a lot of you have pointed out, we're gonna be so much better off now. The space is really well laid out, and it's going to be so nice to work in. So we're going to take that as a positive. Now, if you've enjoyed this tour so far, I'd love it if you'd hit that like button for me. If you're not subscribed already, go ahead and hit that too, because we've got a lot of boatwork videos coming up shortly. Now, we're gonna head out to the shed, and it's nice and cool in here because of all that new insulation, but it's really hot in there. So I wanna show you something that I'm planning on doing in there. Follow me. Back inside the boat shed, and the workshop is looking great. We're just about ready to be done with that and back to boatwork full time, which is awesome. Now you might notice things look a little different in here. We have all of the junk moved out, and we're actually preparing to do one last step to the boat shed before we launch back into the boat full time. So when I made this boat shed, I didn't really consider having a good ground tarp down. Now if you watch other channels, sometimes you'll see when they back the boat in, they do it right over a tarp. It's a great idea, as it turns out. I think what's happening is we have some groundwater that comes up and evaporates in here, sort of creates that greenhouse effect. So it gets and stays quite hot and sometimes humid in here, even with doors open and fans running. If you look over here, you'll see there's a piece of plastic that I put down last night, and it just sort of shows you that some of the groundwater is evaporating and getting trapped under the plastic. So the idea is to put a sheet of plastic on this whole surface, work it under the boat, moving one stand at a time. We're gonna try and do that real quick now. And to get a tarp this big, the only thing I could find that seemed like a good solution were these old used vinyl billboards. So here's the first one. Now these are apparently 14 foot by 48 foot used vinyl tarps. These feel a lot more durable even than say like 6mm poly, the thick stuff you buy at Home Depot. So I'm thinking this is gonna be really good for the floor of the shed. So we have no idea what's on it. Let's unroll it here and see what we've got. Say hello to some of our new Patreon members. This is a group that really helps make this channel a possibility. I wanna say thanks to all you guys, and if you're interested, you can check out the link down below. Okay, someone's got a piano here. How funny is that? I used to love watching The Office, and now I've got a giant billboard of Craig Robinson in my boat shed. So, Craig, if you're watching, thanks to the billboard, man. I'm a big fan.
Thanks, man.
Hey, of course.
All right, this tarp goes right over there. Where I want to put this thing. All right, that's got things looking pretty good in here with the ground tarp. I think that's gonna help us control the moisture in here a lot better and also make cleanup easier. So I'm really happy that we took some time to do that. So now we're gonna put some plywood boards back down just for the common walking areas, move things back in here and get back to work. I'd like to give a quick shout out to a couple of patrons. Scott is working on a Corbin 39 near Lake Simcoe in Ontario, Canada, and he has a YouTube channel called Sailing Reimagined. You can follow it down in the description below. And Scott, all the best with your refit. Joshua works in the medical field, and although he does not currently have a sailboat, he is really hoping to do that one day. So Joshua, follow those dreams, man. Go for it. I really wish you the best there. My advice would be go and do it soon. Don't wait. And maybe this channel is teaching you that you should buy one that's ready to go. All right. Another thanks goes out to Sonia, who is Bridget's sister. She came down and helped us move this soggy workshop out on a very cold day, so very thankful for that. Extra big thanks to the folks whose names are now appearing on the screen, whose generosity really does help make this channel a possibility. If you're interested in learning more about the Patreon page, there's a link down below. Well, after all of that work on this shop, we're now ready to get back into boat work full time. I'm sure that all of you are really excited about that too, so next time you're here, we will be working on the Antidote project, and I have a few other surprises up my sleeve. We're gonna try to get back to that bi-weekly release schedule, so I know we've had a big gap here, and we're gonna try to avoid that in the future. Hopefully no more surprises, but you never know what life brings. If you're new here and you'd like to subscribe, I have a playlist I put together for you. You can watch the whole story from the very beginning, and that is gonna be right over here. And if you still haven't hit that subscribe button, why don't you do that right now? I appreciate you all. See you in the next one. This is great. So now I am the local hardware store.